Hi, I'm going to read your bedtime story. We are still reading The Earth Dragon Awakes by Lawrence Yep. Afternoon, Thursday, April 19th, 1906, to the afternoon of Friday, April 20th, 1906, San Francisco. The three major fires fuse into one titanic monster. They become the Great Fire. That's kind of what it became known as, the Great Fire. The Great Fire sprawls over most of the city. It devours wood. It curls steel beams like hair. It sucks the air from all around it, casting off more heat than 1,000 furnaces. A big blaze like the Great Fire creates a firestorm. A fire heats the air, then the hot air rises. Cold air rushes in and takes the place of the hot air. With small fires, it is just a draft. With the Great Fire, it is giant gusts of wind. They fan the flames, making them even bigger. I hadn't thought about that, but there's a chemistry to fire, so it's causing huge windstorms to blow. They fan the flames, making them even bigger. The winds can knock people and animals back into the fire itself. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. The air in the Great Fire is 20 times hotter than that. At such high temperature, wood and cloth and flesh burst instantly into flame. Most metals will melt. The Great Fire is huge. So is its appetite. It sweeps on like a tidal wave over the hills. Buildings ignite at its touch. More Navy ships sail into the bay. The crews can see the Great Fire. They dock anyway at the unburned piers. From the ships, brave sailors and Marines march into the city. San Francisco will not give up. Van Ness Avenue is a broad street. It is perfect for a firebreak. Nowadays, I think it's 4 lanes, 8 lanes wide. Like it has 4 lanes going south and 4 lanes going north. I think it's 8 lanes wide. It is a really wide street. Even for San Francisco has some wide streets, and it's one of the widest ones. So they decide that they're going to use that to stop the fire. Van Ness Avenue is a broad street. It is perfect for a firebreak. Many of the firemen gather here to make a stand. They dynamite the mansions on either side. Huge clouds of dust mix with the smoke. The houses they set fire to burn down quickly. The Great Fire will find nothing to feed on. The army sends its cannon. Big horses clop down Van Ness. The gunners jump down from the limbers and unhitch their guns. They aim them at the fancy houses and fire. Shells shatter glass and splinter wood. They pound the mansions into ruins. It is a real war now. That would just totally unnerve you too if you're hearing the sounds of cannons going off, which they're super loud, and basically they're just blowing up houses along the street. The Great Fire halts at the firebreak on Van Ness. Hungrily, it reaches for the unburned houses beyond, but the area is too wide. Only sparks land on the other side of the firebreak. Firemen quickly fling buckets of water on them. A Navy tug pumps salt water from the bay. It travels in a miles-long hose to the firemen. They also find 2 hydrants that still work. So out of the whole city, only 2 fire hydrants work, because remember, all the water pipes are under the streets and they all cracked. So none of them will hold water anymore. They also find 2 hydrants that still work. They hook up more hoses to these. Then they shoot streams of water against the flames. The Great Fire tries to sweep north of the firebreak where the mansions still stand. The dynamiters and gunners race ahead of the Great Fire to extend the firebreak. Firemen dash into buildings and place their dynamite. Then they set the fuse and run out. Sometimes they have hardly left the mansion before it explodes. The army gunners fire their cannon yards away from their targets. Firemen and gunners dodge the flying debris and move on. They must keep ahead of the hungry flames. The firemen hold most of Van Ness Avenue, but then the Great Fire slips south. It gets ahead of the firemen. Flames claim the still erect mansions on one side of Van Ness. From these rooftops, the Great Fire sends flaming darts across the street. Soon mansions are burning on the other side. The Great Fire crosses Van Ness Avenue at that spot. It has won the race. The rest of the city lies helplessly before it. Firemen and gunners must coax scared horses back into their harnesses. Then tired men and animals stumble one block west to Franklin Street. They will make a new stand there. The desperate battle begins again. The great fire forces them back another block to Gough Street. The firemen start over. They will not give up. Late afternoon, Friday, April 20th, 1906, Oakland. San Francisco is still burning. Flames cover the hills. Most of the buildings are gone, but there doesn't seem to be as much smoke. Ah Quan and Chin have crates of fish onto a wagon. Ah Sing checks a list. He says, "People still have to eat, and we have to work." They are the lucky ones. 50,000 people have fled to Oakland. They live in tents set up for them, but Americans object to living next to Chinese, so Chinese survivors have to live in special camps. Isn't that appalling? Everyone has survived this giant catastrophic event, and yet still we're going to be racist. With all the survivors are going to behave like racists. So Chinese survivors have to live in special camps. Chin glances back at San Francisco. Will the Earth Dragon strike again? So many people have died. He hopes that Henry isn't one of them. Every time a ferry comes in, he scans the crowd for his friend. He does not pay attention when a Navy ship docks at another pier. He does not know that the Navy is now carrying people to safety. He is still working when he hears, "Chin, Ah Sing!" It is the Travises. Their clothes are singed. They look dazed like the other passengers. Sawyer is in Henry's arms. The dog barks a greeting. Chin jumps down from the wagon. He is about to hug Henry but stops. "What's wrong?" Henry asks. "I stink of fish," Chin says. "I smell of smoke," Henry laughs. They hug anyway. Sawyer licks their faces. Ah Sing greets the Travises. "Can I help you with your luggage?" "The ship would only take us," Mr. Travis explains. Mrs. Travis holds up her umbrellas. "But I refuse to lose these." Mr. Travis winks. "You scared those poor sailors. You looked ready to hit them with the umbrellas." "And I would have too," Mrs. Travis says. She brandishes her umbrellas like swords. Ah Quan is resting on the wagon bed. Chin introduces him now. Ah Quan nods. "Do you have someplace to stay?" Ah Sing asks the Travises. "I have a cousin in Sacramento," Mrs. Travis says. Mr. Travis makes a face. "He's a big windbag. I'm staying in San Francisco." "Where?" Mrs. Travis asks. Mr. Travis waves a hand at the burning city. "We'll build it bigger and better." "And where do we stay in the meantime?" Mrs. Travis demands. Ah Sing clears his throat. "It's a little smelly, but I could ask my cousin Ah Bing." So the Travises move in with Ah Sing and Chin's cousin. It's a good thing they like fish. All right. We will stop there. Thanks for joining me. To be continued. Dun dun dun. At least now they found each other.